Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Sunday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trusty because you guys rock. To my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now we're up to episode number 140, and last week we left off with normal maps at the bottom of page 23. We left off also with the file TextuerBaking-finished.blend, okay, and that showed a different lighting situation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Normal map. Baking a normal map is actually just a special case of texture baking. Normal map baking is commonly used to generate a tangent normal map from a high resolution model to map onto a low resolution model. Okay, so what is a normal map? A normal map is a regular image file, but instead of influencing the color of the surface like a regular color texture, say that 5 times fast, normal maps are used to alter the per pixel surface normal. By altering the surface normal, you can change the apparent bumpiness of a surface. The effect of a normal mapped object is one that has far more apparent fidelity than the actual underlying mesh. Okay, so I'm going to switch back over to here so you can see. Okay, this is a high poly mesh. This is the low poly mesh. This is a low poly mesh with the normal map applied to it. Not much different, huh? Okay, so there are two ways to create a normal map. A normal map can be created in an image editing tool such as Photoshop or GIMP. Plugins are available that can convert a black and white height map into a normal map. The second is use Blender's built-in tool to bake a normal map from a high polygon model to a low polygon model. Okay, so high poly model to a low poly model, or actually a low poly model to a high poly model. Okay, so the tutorial to bake a normal map from a high poly model to a low poly model. Okay, we're going to open up and go into file, hit open, and we're going to come over here to where it says normal map.blend. Okay, don't do the finished one yet, don't cheat. Okay, so this has got the normal map and the high resolution. As you can see, you get the high resolution map here and a low resolution map on top. If I grab that, okay, you can see the difference. Okay, you got to put them right on top of each other in order to make this work. Notice that we have two objects of the same model. A high resolution model that we'll use as the input, and a low resolution model that we will bake the normal map to. They occupy the same space because this is necessary for the normal map baking process to work properly. As with light map baking, you first need to UV unwrap the model so that the texture baking knows where to place the texture. Select the low resolution model since that's the one you are baking to. Okay, so we're going to go to select the low resolution model. Okay, go into edit mode and press U. Yeah, select the low resolution. I wanted to make sure I got it. Okay, so we're going to go hit tab. As you see, it's already pre-selected for us. We're going to hit U and then unwrap. As you see, the unwrap feature should pop up down here. If it didn't, that means you did something different. Okay, all right, so because no image texture is created for you automatically, manually create a new image texture data block by clicking on the new button in the image editor. That's down here, right down here to where it says new. You're going to click on it. Make sure it is 1024 by 1024, and then click OK. Now, as you see, it put a black square around where the map will be. Okay, now comes the tricky part. First, select the high resolution model, then hold down Shift to add the low resolution model to the selection. So if, let me hit tab, you want to tab out, make sure you're on a low resolution model first, Oh no, I'm sorry, you have to go to the high resolution. You're going to select the high one. You're going to hold shift, and then you're going to hit the low one. Okay, make sure the low one is the one that's selected. So if I hit grab, both of them will move now, but the low one will have the little white shade instead of the blue shade, or whatever your secondary one is. A lot of times it's just an orange or yellow. It depends on how you have your setup. Okay. This way, both objects should be selected, with the low poly or low resolution model being the active object. You can select the object from the outlier, okay, liner, to make the process simpler. From the render properties, and then we're already in render properties, this is a little clock deal right there, okay, you're going to select the normal from the bake mode. So we're going to go down here to bake, and we're going to click on normals. Okay, you have a lot of stuff that we went over in last week's lesson, but you want normals, okay, for this one. Let's see, and then click on bake. Boop. Okay, you'll notice up here is your progress, and after that you should have a nice pretty little deal right there. Okay, if you just got the purple screen, that means you did the high poly mesh and not the low poly mesh. Okay, so with the new mesh on there, new colors on there, okay, once baking is done, the baked texture should have a purple hue to it. If the color is off, check to make sure that you are baking a normal map onto the correct normal space tangent. Okay, at this point you have no use for the high resolution model anymore. Move the object to a different layer or delete it. Okay, so we can come up over here to the high poly model now, and I'm just going to move it over to the last layer, but you can delete it if you want. Okay, because you really don't need it anymore. But if you're going to make another one later, or do another light pack or something like that with it, you might want to save it. You don't want to just get rid of your high poly models. Okay, you just don't want them being used. Okay, to use the normal map, create a material and image texture for the low resolution model. So what we're going to do is we'll come over here to this, okay, to the materials tab, okay, and then we're going to click on new. Okay, so it's just going to throw a whole new model on there. Okay, we're not worried about that too much. Now the hard part is coming to this. We're going to hit new. We're going to come down here, okay, image, okay, we're going to come here. You'll see a light map, okay, in your files. If you don't have the files, now's the time to get them. Okay, you should have gotten them beforehand, way before we got up to chapter 8. But if you don't have them, go to where you got the book from, and they have a link that you can go to get the files. Okay, so what we're going to do is click the light map. Okay, and as you, oops, okay, it's a different one, but as you see, the colors have changed. I did the wrong one. So we're going to kick out of that, and we're going to create a one from what we have, which is untitled. That should do that now. Okay, and then we're going to make sure to turn on, where's it at, turn on normal map. Okay, we're going to make sure it says UV. Okay, we're going to turn off color. We're going to turn on geometry normal, and as you see over here, the normals pop up. Okay, it makes that one look from that to that. Can you see the difference? Looks a lot better, doesn't it? Okay, there's also one with the alpha, but I don't see it on my map pack here, so it's not something you really have to worry about. Oh, there it is, show alpha. Okay, so make sure you show alpha. Okay, that only just makes it to where it doesn't put the black outline around it, and it kind of helps out a bit. All right, so that does that. So now we come down a little bit further. The final result should look like the file normal map.finish. So it should look like this if we come up to File, Open, and File Finished. Oops, that's texture baking. Wrong one. Normal matte finish. There we go. Okay, so there you go. See, it looks exactly the same. I can still come over here to the material and turn it on and off just to show you that it's still a low poly mesh. You're going to have to do some, like, it's going to be some kind of detail, but you want to make it to where it's detail that you can, work with. Because when you turn off the map, you'll see that you've got to have the geometry, most of the geometry there. It doesn't have to be perfectly there. Okay? So make sure you got a good low poly mesh, and when you turn on the high resolution, it'll look good. Okay? Alright, so if you're curious, a normal map uses the 3 color channels RGB, red, green, blue, to store the normal directions X, Y, and Z, left, right, up, down, okay, forward and back, of a surface. Because most surface normals are pointing outward, they have a normal value of X equals 0.5, Y equals 0.5, and Z equals 1.0, which is what gives normal maps that distinct purple color. Okay, normal map utilities. The two most popular normal map utilities seem to be GIMP with normal map. Okay, for you guessed it, the GIMP. Okay, GIMP is a good one to use. I use it a lot because I don't have the free one. Okay, and NVIDIA's texture tools for Photoshop. And if you pay for Photoshop, cool. If you don't want to put a price tag on it, go to GIMP. It's free. Okay, all right. So that leaves us at the end. Let's see. On the bottom, no, middle. I'm gonna say middle of page. Yeah, kind of at the bottom or to the top. Okay, page 26. I'm gonna say almost the middle of the page. Okay, so let me do that. There we go. Okay, so we'll end off with a level of detail. It is page number 26, close towards the top. I hope you learned a little bit more about, normal mapping and how you can do it in Blender. Actually, it's very helpful. I haven't really played with it enough to use it on mine because I just went with a really low poly model, and because you weren't going to be getting close to it on what I was at. So this time around, it might be something I play with to make a better high poly look on a low poly mesh. It'll save you a little bit because, as you saw, from the high poly to the low poly, there's not as much geometry. So there you go. You're saving a lot of space. Myself, for the project that I was working on, I just put barriers up and left a nice high polyed model, and I just used materials. I didn't use any texturing, and so if you take the physics off of it, it actually makes it run faster. But if you have a high poly model, the more high poly models you put in your scene, the more it's going to drag out in your scene while you're editing it. A lot of people don't know this. When you have a whole bunch of high poly models, and it's just killing you to get to one specific point that you want to look at on a really big map, it'd be best to have low poly stuff with the normal set to it, with a normal texture set to it, and that way you won't have to have those high polys. It just looks high poly. Save you a little bit of time. So again, page 26, little bit down from the top. Okay, level of detail next week. Till then.